Have you ever had a hobby that you were really good at in the past and then you realized, oh no, you quit for a little bit and then you came back and now every single time you think or trying to do the same hobby, everyone is calling you horrible for it. And not only is everyone calling you horrible for it, but the only thing you are capable of doing is reminiscing about the good old days, about the days where people actually considered you amazing at your hobby because the skill level was really, 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 really low back then. That's basically what actually occurs in the average conversation whenever you engage with somebody who's been debating, at least from the periods of 2024 all the way to 2019 or before that. Usually these people are people who typically, at least comparatively, did not take debating nearly as seriously for maybe good reason, or not even just that they didn't take debating as seriously. They were generally just less intelligent. Maybe they were considered good for their time. They were considered good in terms of, their ability to say gibberish in a manner which it was quote unquote convincing. And they were typically just in a generation where people valued specifically winning debates more so in comparison to performing actually well or actually creating coherent arguments within the conversations. And because of this different sort of focus between actually winning debates and performing well and excellently and outperforming your opponent within the debate, typically these people are generally the types to actually fall into things like rats. For example, you had people like Bubbles who are unironically capable of going around and saying another level is a lower level and capable of actually winning debates with it, not simply because of the fact that these people just were horrible reasoners, which it is true that they were indeed horrible reasoners, but also due to the fact that more importantly what they were more focused on, rather than actually disproving the argument, was the fact that it sounded absurd, so they would continuously attempt to point out its absurdity without actually trying to give a proper substantive critique. So again, it just doesn't particularly make sense because it really takes away from the entire point of debating. You'll notice that if you are actually to look at a lot of the old generation recordings which occurred within the debate community, you'll notice that typically you hear people actually saying things like, oh, well, I won verdict. And then you ask them to explain the verdicts. It's like, oh yeah, no, he lost argumentatively. But that rhetoric though, when he overtalked him and called his mother a bitch, that rhetoric, yeah, and it's really a bit odd, right? Because if you really think about it, you see these people give absolutely horrible judgments, and then whenever they get pressed on the judgments, the person who's actually contesting them is labeled as a quote unquote debate goon or a weirdo because they don't quote unquote take the loss on the chin because of the fact that the judgment was horrible, or typically just debate gooning in general. Which is why, again, I'm of the opinion that life would just be so much easier if we just abolished the entire concept of judges. It makes no sense why people can't just determine who won a debate on their own, rather than needing a whole new third party of questionable competence to actually come in and actually suggest judges. And you actually see this sort of thing that has even carried over to new gen debating, right? You can look at cases like Infinity, you can look at what Archie used to do back in the day. You can look at what some of the old judges, when they've come back to debate, what they'll do. So what they'll do is a very simple strategy. So they'll list out a bunch of judges who the person who they're talking to obviously thinks is incompetent. And then when the person says no to all of those judges, then you look as if, oh my god, he's crazy. Why is he disagreeing with any of those judges judging his debates? Oh my god, he must be ducking. Even though, keep in mind, both of them are entirely capable of debating at the current moment. One of them is just refusing to debate until a third party comes in to validate their own opinions, right? Which is a bit odd. I don't know why people would ever want to do that, have a whole third party come and validate your opinion, but it's fine. But basically that's the typical gaslighting strategy, and the reason why it's so effective is because then everyone in the chat will come in and be like, oh my god, why are you dodging? Oh my god, do you look at him, he's ready to debate. And it's like, no, well, it's really odd because why don't you ever sit there and let somebody who you already don't think is intelligent give opinions and be credited as an actual competent source of opinions or a determiner for your debate when you already don't think they're intelligent. And then due to you not thinking they're intelligent, now you're being shamed for not agreeing to somebody who you already don't think is intelligent. It's never made sense to me, for one. And recently, well, I won't say recently because I've spoken about this before, but recently I actually had the displeasure of watching or rewatching Parrot versus Trini. And there was a whole bunch of blunders. In fact, I'm pretty sure they made at least one blunder every minute, right? Where they said something which is absolutely like incorrect, brutally incorrect. So, for example, you have Parrot defining a presupposition as something you cannot prove to be objective. Then Trini actually agrees with that definition. You have Parrot defining knowledge as to know something. I'm pretty sure in fact, I have a whole list of clips that I can pull up right now of all of the blunders that were made by both parties within the conversation. In fact, we're going to go over them in a very clear, concise, and succinct manner. Yeah, so, okay, whenever Parrot was speaking to Trini, he said, to be presupposed means not to be able to prove something's existence, and and it is not a presupposition because you can't make an argument that something doesn't exist without invoking it. Again, you can obviously tell it's just complete gibberish. You also have Parrot, who's somebody who's supposed to be considered a very high-tier debater, saying that, actually, there being a possible refutation which negates an argument, therefore makes the argument that is being negated impossible, which again is like obviously false. Like, I don't know how that's being inferred. You have Trini saying that you need to prove definitions. I don't know what that means. You have Trini denying analytic truths for some odd reason. You have Trini saying that just because we don't know everything, that means everything is possible, is logically possible. I don't know where he got that from. According to, I'm pretty sure this was Parrot that said that. Parrot said that for something to be an axiom, no, this was Trini. Trini said for something to be an axiom, we need to have epistemic access to it. Don't know where he's getting that from. Trini was also a skeptic about anything existing, so not just, maybe our perceptions are reliable. In fact, Trini is actually very well considering the possibility that right now he doesn't even exist. Now, again, there are like 5, 6, 7 blunders which are made within the conversation, and typically the people of those sorts of eras won't actually point out these sorts of things, not because maybe they're biased to one of the debaters, because even if you assume that there's some bias for one party, no, it isn't because of that. It's because fundamentally these people are horrible reasoners, right? Maybe I can, and I will admit that, maybe back in the quote-unquote day, that debating was far more entertaining because people were far more focused on actually entertaining the crowd, doing things like winning polls, yelling over talking, excommunicating people from the community, rather than actually attempting to engage with any real substance. And if I didn't want to engage with the level of substance which these people could understand, they were labeled something like a nerd, knowledge, and I don't even know where that term knowledge, why is that term even a real thing? Like, what do you think that just because you read loads of books then now you'll be able to apply it within conversations? Like, no, that's obviously not true, right? For you to actually be able to apply the things you read within books within an argument, you need the reasoning skills to be able to draw inferences between the things you learn, right, and the argument that's being made. So it's very odd why, I'm pretty sure there was a video about Seth who came up with that, why Seth even use that as a term, when in reality all that's just going on is like you engage in an argument, you realize that, I know significantly less than this other person about the topic, so instead of me just admitting I'm a worse debater than them at the topic, instead I'm just going to say he's a knowledge Andy and I'm a better debater anyway, right? I just coincidentally happen to lose both on substance and the rhetoric. It's like, no, that's just cope. Aside from all of that, like, you obviously have the sort of people who also say things which is just blatantly like confused. So, for example, the best example of this is you can look at Gizbob versus Era, where the absolute gibberator, dumb idiot Ace, right, actually came away from that debate with the opinion that I'm pretty sure Era won, like, or at least I'm pretty sure he was going to have that opinion. And it's sort of like, okay, well, we get it, like, the guy's your friend. But it's like, how do you expect to be taken seriously when a debate that was so obviously a blowout for one party, you actually consider saying that one of these people won? And then you also notice that these sorts of people who, again, are the reminiscers, will actually join servers and be like, oh my god, these are the heighters of the modern day, haha, these old guys would slam them. And then you ask them a very basic term, like, imagine if I walked up to Ace and asked him what a proposition is, or I walked up to, I don't know, Phantom Ichi, or walked up to, like, I don't know, like Tigger, and asked him what a proposition is, without actually deflecting, obfuscating, like, and then they just wouldn't be able to answer. And the reason why they wouldn't be able to answer is because fundamentally, well, it's a bit odd, because fundamentally they lack fundamentals, they lack the ability to properly argue, I lack the ability to convey the sort of arguments. They maybe they have ideas in their head, right? But every single time they open their mouth, the only thing that comes out is a mishmash of tier 4 gibberation. And it's really odd. But also one final thing I'd like to add is it is a bit odd, like how you like mock somebody's and this is something I've always noticed that happens within the debate community. People will be doxers, people will mock what's it called, people will mock your family. They will say, will mock what's it called, what sort of place you're from. Like imagine, okay, look at this, so well I'm Nigerian, and they'll be like, oh my god, haha, yeah, you live in a mud hut, haha, get it, you have no water, da da da. And but then when you say their mom is dead, and their mom is actually dead, and then it's like, no, you can't say that. No. And it's like, come on, dude. Like, are we going to be serious here? Like, is that really the moment or is that really the hill you wish to die on, to start being sensitive? And it's really ridiculous. I've never understood why people actually do that. But, yeah, that's it for the video. Discord.gg/rising or something like that. And yeah, man.